Tanks are lined up in front of Russia's parliament. Their barrels pointed straight at the building. Across the river, people stand and watch. Some have climbed onto ledges for a better view. Others gather along the road, hands in their pockets, talking quietly. No one is shouting. For a moment, it feels almost calm. The soldiers inside the tanks don't move. They sit and wait. Then the barrels begin to turn. Slowly, they adjust their aim, not toward the crowd, not toward the street, toward the building itself. Inside, members of parliament are still there, still meeting, still arguing. Some have moved toward the windows now. They can see the tanks. Outside, the crowd doesn't react. They just watch. And then, without warning, everything changes. Russia attacks itself. Just days earlier, this building is still the center of power. Inside, Russia's parliament is in session, locked in a growing conflict with President Boris Yeltsin. The Soviet Union has only recently collapsed, and the country is still trying to figure out who actually holds power. The constitution is unclear. Both the president and the parliament claim authority over the state. Across the city in his office, Yeltsin makes a decision. He signs a decree, dissolving parliament illegally.
Уважаемые сограждане, я обращаюсь к вам в один из самых сложных и ответственных моментов.
The message spreads quickly.
President Yeltsin of Russia took the gamble of his life tonight, dissolving parliament and announcing that he'd rule by decree.
Inside the chamber, people are shouting across the room, calling the move illegal, and they're demanding a response. They move to a vote. Hands go up, one after another. They vote for Yeltsin to be impeached.
And just in the last few minutes, we've seen these pictures of Vice President Rudskoy being sworn in as president to replace President Yeltsin.
Russia now has two governments. Both claim to be in charge, and orders go out from both sides.
Civilian protesters joined men in uniform and signed up for a militia. They were given Kalashnikov rifles.
Yeltsin's base was inside the Kremlin. He worked from the Senate building within the Kremlin complex, which functioned as the presidential headquarters of Russia. The parliament building is just a few miles away. From inside the Kremlin, Yeltsin calls on the military to back him and to enforce a decree. Inside the White House, the response is immediate. Parliamentary leaders call on the public to defend them, urging supporters to gather around the building and to resist. Crowds begin to gather. No one is sure whether to move or to stand down. Barricades go up, built from whatever is at hand. The atmosphere is tense. Some in the crowd are carrying sticks, others bring weapons. While inside, politicians are waiting for support, unsure of whether it will come.
The electric power has been cut off. Men with Kalashnikov rifles are patrolling the corridors in the dark, fearing an attack by government troops.
As the standoff drags on, pressure on the parliament begins to tighten. Electricity is cut. Phones stop working. Water is restricted.
Rudskoy told ITN in an exclusive interview that he is determined to see this confrontation through.
And I know how this will end, with a candle like this, burning as a memorial for democracy in Russia.
At night, parts of the building sit almost completely dark. Inside, deputies sleep on chairs and office floors. Outside, the crowds continue to grow. Some gather in support of Yeltsin, demanding the parliament to surrender. Others push back against police lines surrounding the building.
The wall buckled and broke, the start of a vicious running battle along the Moscow Ring Road.
Small clashes begin to break out across the city. What had started as a constitutional crisis is slowly turning into a siege. It is late September. The air is turning cold. The days shorter. Since Yeltsin dissolved parliament, nothing has been resolved. The parliamentary building remains occupied. The standoff holds. Every day, people gather outside. At first, they come in small groups, standing near the barricades, watching, talking, waiting to see who will give in first, but no one does. The crowds outside the parliamentary building support the deputies that are inside. Many believe that Yeltsin overstepped his powers. They stay close to the building, held back by police lines that keep them contained. Another day passes without a breakthrough. And another one. It has now been 10 days since Yeltsin dissolved the parliament and the standoff began. The morning of October 3rd started like any other. In the morning, people started to gather around the parliament building as usual, but today something felt different. Arguments started to break out. People started to push forward, testing the police lines. At first, the police managed to hold on. Then, in one section, they give way. A small group breaks through, and then another. What had been contained around the parliament now starts to spill into the city. Columns of people now move through the streets of Moscow. Some carry makeshift weapons, and others just follow, but no one seems to be fully in control. It is unclear who is leading the movement or what their plan is. One column heads towards the city center. Along the way, they force their way into Moscow's city hall, overwhelming what little resistance remains and taking control of the building. For a moment, it feels like the momentum has shifted. Word travels fast. More groups begin moving, some following, others breaking off toward different targets. Cars are stopped.
Officers tried to flee on their bus, but the demonstrators set it on fire with a petrol bomb.
Police units that had held their ground just hours earlier begin to retreat. The city is opening up, and as the afternoon wears on, a larger crowd begins to form, moving north. Their destination is a large television center. If they take it, they control the broadcast. They arrive at the complex, but the entrance is already strongly guarded. Armed troops are waiting inside. At first, the crowd pushes forward, trying to force their way in. Then, the shooting starts. It's sudden, chaotic. Within minutes, the scene turns into a firefight. Some run, others fire back. What had felt unstable now turns violent. Inside the Kremlin, the reports keep coming in. What had started as a political standoff is now spreading across the city. Key buildings are being taken. Gunfire has broken out. The city is no longer under control. Yeltsin listens as the situation is laid out in front of him. He makes the decision. Force will be used.
The White House itself is completely encircled by armored personnel. The majority of the heavy tanks are still sitting below our bureau.
Columns of armored vehicles move through Moscow during the night, taking up positions along the river, facing the White House. Now they sit in a line, spaced out along the embankment, their barrels aimed at the upper floors of the building. These are the units from the Russian army, brought in after the violence of the previous day. Unlike the police or interior troops, they had been given clear orders. The standoff is over. Behind them, soldiers move quietly between the vehicles, checking equipment, speaking in low voices. Some stand outside, others remain inside the tanks, waiting. Across the river, that same crowd has gathered again. Not as large as the day before, but still there. People now stand in small groups, watching, trying to understand what will happen next. Some point toward the building, others toward the tanks. Inside the parliament, the remaining deputies and armed supporters are still holding out. Windows are broken. Smoke stains the upper floors from the fighting the night before. For a moment, it feels like another standoff. But then, the first shot. The shell slams into the facade, tearing through the upper floors. Windows shatter outward, scattering into the street below, as smoke begins to rise. Inside, people scramble for cover. The crowd hesitates, as if unsure what they just saw. Then, another shot. And another. The crowd finally breaks. Each shot hits the building with force, sending debris falling from the walls as the structure is beginning to burn. The tanks continue to fire, round after round, hitting the upper floors again and again, while troops prepare to move in. Around midday on October 4th, they enter the building, pushing through what's left of the resistance.
But within hours, it is over. In the face of a defiance no one had expected, the attempted coup will evaporate.
In the weeks that follow, the crisis is framed as a necessary step to restore order. Yeltsin moves quickly. A new constitution is drafted and approved just 2 months later. It rewrites the balance of power, weakening parliament and concentrating authority in the presidency. What had been an unclear system is now replaced by something far more defined, but also far more centralized. For many, this moment marks the end of one kind of Russia and the beginning of another. The fragile, chaotic experiment of the early post-Soviet years gives way to a system that is built around strong executive power. The images of October 1993, tanks firing on parliament, the state turning on itself, leave a lasting imprint. Because from this point on, the question is no longer who holds power, but how far that power can go.